I know you're doing a political speech here. I get it. I'm asking questions of law. No, you're just spewing rhetoric.
I truly believe this. I
well,
truly believe this
rhetoric.
As an American.
Let me ask you this: Do you agree with Justice Scalia in the Supreme Court opinion in Reno v. Flores that, I'm quoting, "It is well established that the Fifth Amendment entitles aliens to due process of law in deportation proceedings." End of quote.
Sir, we are utilizing every due process tool that this Congress has afforded us.
The
Congress decides what
Madam
due process
Secretary,
is appropriate for every situation. Expedited removal is a due process that you have afforded us that we are utilizing. The Alien Enemies Act
I'm going to
is another
reclaim my
tool that
time,
we're
Madam
utilizing.
Secretary.
So we are giving due process and using the tools
Madam
that
Secretary,
this Congress has given us.
This is really, I'm asking sort of simple questions of law and simple questions like, are you complying with the 9-0 Supreme Court decision? And you seem to think that's some kind of trick question. Madam Secretary, it's good to see you.
Good to see you too.
And I was glad to see in your recent testimony that you reaffirmed your obligations to uphold the Constitution of the United States. And I understand you had an exchange with Senator Murphy on the Abrego-Garcia case. And so I'm just going to put the question directly to you. Are you or DHS doing anything to comply with the 9-0 Supreme Court order to facilitate his return to the United States? Just yes or no.
Now, this administration is following all federal court orders.
Madam Secretary, this is a simple question.
I'm asking the president's prerogative on conversations that happen with the president of El Salvador.
I ask a simple question. We have a limited amount of time. I just asked you, Madam Secretary, whether or not you or the Department of Homeland Security are taking any action to facilitate the 9-0 Supreme Court decision to facilitate his return. This is a very simple question. Are you taking any action to facilitate his return, or are you not?
This administration is following and complying with all federal court orders to make sure that we.
So you are because the court ordered that you facilitate his return. So you are facilitating his return.
Sir, Senator, thank you for the question. But what I would tell you is that we are following court orders and that your advocacy for a known terrorist is alarming to me.
Madam Secretary.
It's alarming to me because he's a human smuggler.
Madam Secretary, I'm going to have to reclaim my time.
And a terrorist, and he's not a U.S. citizen. He's a citizen of El Salvador, and he's home. If he were to come back
Madam
here,
Secretary,
we would take him immediately.
All right, I'm going to have to, Madam Secretary, you should know a couple facts then, which is, number one, in 2019, the immigration court said that he should not be returned to El Salvador because it would put his life in danger. The Trump administration at the time did not appeal that decision. After that, he got a work permit and was working legally in the United States of America. This is also why the district court and the appellate court and the Supreme Court have ruled as they have. I suggest that rather than make these statements here, that you and the Trump administration make them in court under oath, because despite what you just said, the federal district court whose judge is hearing this case right now said, and I'm quoting, that the administration has provided no evidence linking Abrego-Garcia to MS-13 or any other terrorist activity. I'm not vouching for the man. I'm vouching for his due process rights.
Yes, you are, sir. You've been vouching for
Madam
him.
Secretary, with respect.
I would suggest that you defend and stand alongside the victims of illegal crime.
This is political rhetoric.
The citizens who live here and are United States Americans. I would suggest you advocate for them as hard as you do. Madam Secretary,
I know you're doing a political speech here. I get it. I'm asking questions of law. No, you're just spewing rhetoric.
I truly believe this. I
truly believe this as an American. Let me ask you this. Do you agree with Justice Scalia in the Supreme Court opinion in Reno v. Flores that, I'm quoting, "It is well established that the Fifth Amendment entitles aliens to due process of law in deportation proceedings." End of quote.
Sir, we are utilizing every due process tool that this Congress has afforded us. Congress decides what due process is appropriate for every situation. Expedited removal is a due process that you have afforded us that we are utilizing. The Alien Enemies Act.
I'm going to reclaim my time, Madam Secretary.
So we are giving due process and using the tools that this Congress has given us.
This is really, I'm asking sort of simple questions of law and simple questions like, are you complying with the 9-0 Supreme Court decision? And you seem to think that's some kind of trick question. Let me ask you this. You were down at CCOT in El Salvador, and you said, and that I'm quoting, it is one of the tools in the toolkit that we will use. And it's well known that the Trump administration is paying the government of El Salvador to keep these individuals, including those who the U.S. courts have determined were illegally taken out of the country in violation of their due process rights. Have you seen the grant document between the United States and the government of El Salvador with respect to the CCOT?
It's important that everybody knows the consequences of what happens for their actions in this country. When you break the law and you're a member of a foreign terrorist organization,
Madam Secretary, I asked you a question. Have you seen the document? This is not hard.
Yes, I have.
Okay. And what are the provisions of the document? So do you know what entities in El Salvador are receiving the funds?
I'm sure you can see this document as well and have looked at it for evaluation.
I'm glad you raised that, Madam Secretary, because I sent you a letter along with many of my colleagues here on April 8th asking for, among other things, that document. Will you respond to the letter that we sent?
I will respond to your letter.
Thank you. Can I get some sense of when?
We will take a look at it. I don't remember seeing your letter yet, but I will certainly take a look at it.
Here's what happened. All 9 Supreme Court justices unanimously ordered the government to bring Kilmar Abrego Garcia back to the United States. Not because he's a hero, not because he's innocent, but because he had legal status. A court recognized that deporting him posed serious risks and that his right to due process had been violated. And yet, under oath, Kristi Noem repeatedly dodged a simple yes or no question. Is DHS complying with that 9-0 Supreme Court ruling? Instead of answering, she eventually pivoted, accusing Senator Van Hollen of siding with terrorists. That's not national security. That's propaganda. That's what authoritarianism sounds like. When the law becomes optional and disagreement makes you the enemy. Van Hollen made it clear there is zero evidence linking Garcia to terrorism. None. Every federal court has said so. Yet DHS under Noem deported him anyway, a legal worker with a valid permit, in direct violation of multiple court orders. And it gets worse. DHS didn't just remove him unlawfully, they outsourced the punishment. They are now using U.S. taxpayer dollars to pay the Salvadoran government to detain people like Garcia, even when American courts have ruled those deportations were illegal. Think about that. Imagine the U.S. government deporting you without cause, then paying a foreign government to hold you so you can't challenge it in an American courtroom. That's not theoretical. It's happening right now. And if it can happen to someone like Garcia, it can happen to anyone DHS finds inconvenient. When Van Hollen asked Noem whether she had even read the agreement with El Salvador, she admitted she had. When asked if she'd respond to a request for transparency, she said, maybe. And when questioned about DHS's commitment to due process, she pointed to expedited removals, claiming that was good enough. But that's the danger, when good enough replaces constitutional rights. When executive power becomes an excuse to ignore the Supreme Court, that's not democracy. That's how democracy dies. So no, Van Hollen wasn't just giving a speech, he was sounding the alarm. And if you're paying attention, you should hear it too. Because the real question isn't whether Kristi Noem will keep ignoring the courts. It's whether the rest of us will let her. If you believe in the Constitution and in the rule of law, not just political theater, subscribe to this channel. And if you want to help keep this kind of truth-telling alive, support us on Patreon. Because those dismantling democracy have the loudest megaphones. It's time we answered back.